Pretty hard this time. The gas tanks were ripped off the ends of the wings, but I quickly glued those back on. And as you crash the plane more and more, taking the front end off and in half and sideways and every which way it can come apart. And it's not styrofoam. It's a lot spongier than styrofoam. It's not quite as rigid, but what it lacks in rigidity, it makes up for in impact resistance and just overall strength. Now, you're probably wondering why I can't just glue the front end back on yet. Well, I'll show you right now piecing it together. What the main problem is the front end is tad bit deformed. Yeah, and that pretty much happens every time. The EPO foam takes the hit, the cells compress and crush, thereby protecting your batteries and radio equipment. I've crashed this plane hard as hell, and I have yet to have ruined a battery, which goes right in this nose cone every time. I have some cotton balls there as a help me position the battery forward or back depending on which battery I'm using. So anyway, this will spring out to its original shape like you wouldn't believe. And what you're going to need to accomplish such a task: a pair of tongs, metal pot, bigger is better, and water. It's that stuff that comes out of the sink. So what you're going to do is take your tongs, or if the part that needs to be sprung back out's on the plane, obviously you won't need tongs. I'm going to take these tongs and stick that right in there. Just let her float around, push it down a little, whatever it's going to take. As you can see, it's already starting to spring back out. Now, while this happens here, I'll explain to you what's happening. The EPO cells, much like the beads you would see in styrofoam, they are actually taking on water due to the steam and the heat and expanding. So the heat is allowing the EPO to soften up and take on water rather than repel it like cold water would do. Haven't tried this with cold water, but probably wouldn't have the same effect. So that is looking a lot better. You know, it doesn't really matter how long you do it. It's up to you. Just keep pulling it back out. Let's take a look at what we got here. You can feel the weight of the water in there. But look at that. It's already sprung back out considerably. I'm going to throw this other piece in there. Why not? You know, stick that in there. Be careful not to stick your electronics in the water when you have to do this. Okay. Now, one thing you're going to have to consider is after you've crashed your plane 20, 30 times and glued it back together, any hot glue that's on the piece that's going in the water is going to melt away. And I've had it happen one time to where a joint that I glued together kind of came unglued on me, and then when it dried I just had to re-glue it. Not a big deal. You can see, look at that, completely back out to where it is supposed to be. Let's see the other side here. Okay, looks fine. Just need some glue at this point. So what I'm going to do next is allow some time to elapse here, because you don't want to try to glue wet EPO foam back together. Glue won't hold very good for obvious reasons. So, okay, you're just going to put just a little bead don't get too crazy with it, because after 20 or 30 times of gluing, an ounce here and there, a couple grams of glue, your plane's gonna weigh twice as much as it did when it was new. If any of you guys know what's the limit to how many times you can re-expand and glue a broken plane over and over again, I'd like to know. You got to be quick when you're doing a large piece like this, because you don't want this glue here to cool before this glue over here is applied or whatever. I've had it happen. So, alright, and quickly stick her on. Hold firm. Not too firm, just make sure everything is in place, because otherwise you'll have to rip it off and glue it again, and you don't want to have to do that. It's okay to smear the any excess glue back into the crack. That's one of the things I like to do. You can also leave the bead there and trim it off with a knife. Some people like to do that. But as you can see, we are done. I mean, look at the shape of that front end. Completely back to factory, like very nice. You know, you just got another ugly seam to deal with, but whatever. I've got plenty of brand new planes to fly. If you're in this hobby, you're going to find out that one plane's just not going to cut it for you, if you guys don't already know that. So hopefully this will help you guys decide whether or not to go with EPO or fiberglass. Fiberglass is very fixable too, but it's a much, much longer process. So